Hey yo, hey, hey, baby, I'm ready, oh, hey yo, hey, hey, baby, I'm ready, oh, hey yo, hey yo, hey, hey yo, hey.
Welcome to One Spirit Walker. My name is Tanya. Today we're going to be talking about Emily Pike. We're going to take a deep dive into her chart and map it out, see if we can't figure out what happened to her in that last moment, the last time she was seen, and what happened possibly right after. I did this chart a little while back. I took a look at it, and I hesitated from making a video because I was really surprised by what I found. I was thinking maybe the perpetrator is from somewhere else, some other state, which that still could be a possibility. Jupiter does rule interstate commerce. That is a possibility, but there are so many other things that actually point back to her reservation. And the other reservation just north of her in particular. I hesitated from making this video because I think we can all agree that if we look at her case, it's, excuse my language, but that's white people shit. Natives typically don't do this type of stuff. So I say it with apology also, that if this is offensive to any natives, I deeply apologize. Is about Emily's chart and what Emily's chart is saying. I was surprised as well by what it said, and so please don't shoot the messenger. And with that being said, let's get into this chart. And I need to give the disclaimer. This always feels odd because I find astrology so useful. But I need to give the disclaimer that astrology is intended for entertainment purposes only. Let's get started. Before we get started on the chart, I need to give credit to Kirsty McIntosh for her book, Criminal Astrology, Volume 1. These are the books I used to do this chart. The Rulership book by Rex Bills. Planets in Transit by Robert Hand. And The American Ephemeris. This is Emily's last seen chart from January 27th, 2025 at 7:45 p.m. She was last seen on Mesa Drive in McKellips in Mesa, Arizona, and that is where this chart has come from. As I discussed in the first chart, Emily, we look to Virgo, we look to Mercury in Capricorn, we look to the moon in Capricorn, and for the perpetrator, we look at Pisces, we look at Jupiter in Gemini. And as we look at this chart, one of the first things that we notice is Emily's ruler is at 29 degrees. The IC, the end of the matter, is at 29 degrees. The top of the chart is 29 degrees. And when I looked up in her solar return chart, her Mercury is at 29 degrees. And Mercury was important for her this year because she is in a third house progressed year. And the third house is ruled by Mercury. And her Mercury in her solar return, like I said, is 29 degrees. It's 29 degrees here. We see a lot of 29 degrees, and 29 degrees is a good indication that things don't end well with this chart. Another thing we see is we see Algol up here, really close to this 29 degrees. It's at 26 degrees. Algol is known for losing one's head, whether literally or figuratively. There are a couple things I added on here, a few things. I added DNA down here, and we'll see when we look at the mapping that if we follow DNA on the opposite, we see some information regarding the mapping of her chart. You'll also see that I included Gecko and the asteroid Chelly. I did it in place of Chahi. And the reason why I picked these two, Gecko is similar to lizard, and Chahi, I apologize if I'm saying it incorrectly, but I could not find an Apache word for lizard in this book here, the rulership book. So what I did is I tried to find a word that was close to it in Navajo. And in Navajo, Chahi is usually referred to like a grandfather, but sometimes the horned lizards, the horny toads we see around here, are sometimes referred to as Chahi. And it is spelt really close, and so that's why I put it in here. And then come to find out, after I map it and put Emily on the chart, she is found right here, right along that same degree point. And you might wonder why I'm looking up lizard. When I first started looking at this chart, I asked her if she could show me some kind of sign that would help with this. And the next morning, when I was tending my garden, I found 3 dead lizards. Then at another time, I was in my room and the TV turned on to a Geico commercial, and there was a gecko there. So she showed me lizard. So just keep a broad spectrum idea of lizard, as it could be a lizard, a Gila monster, a horny toad, a gecko, any type of lizard. And also keep in mind that it could relate to the perpetrator's name, possibly. It could be a nickname. It could be a street, road, the name of the company that he works for, like a trucking company, or who knows what it could be. But lizard popped up. I pulled a chart for the Geico ad that popped up. And I'm going to go ahead and assume that lizard is correct with her, because if you can look right here, it's the same ascendant sign. So this chart's ruled by Mercury, and this chart's ruled by Mercury. Then there's a couple other names. Well, not a couple, one other name that she put out there to me, the name Gary. And that popped up to me several times. One time I was in Queen Creek and I was trying to map my way back, and it took me a different way, and it took me up a Gary road. The very first time I heard it, though, I was doing laundry, and so I didn't know if it was from her or not. But I pulled a chart on the Gary road, and look at this again. Here's an ascendant again, ruled by Mercury. And then I was just going to leave this all alone, because I found out where it was all pointing to, and it wasn't pointing where I thought it was. And lo and behold, I was in Flagstaff when I was thinking of letting it go. And my son brought me this little knife that said Gary on it, the name Gary, out of all names. And look at this again. It's ruled by Mercury. So as I'm looking at these, I'm going to say we want to pay attention to lizard. We want to pay attention to Gary, whether Gary's a name, a road. Now, I didn't ask her for help when she gave me the name Gary, So it may or may not be related to the perpetrator. It could very well possibly be that she had somebody that was maybe a mentor or somebody that she just wanted to acknowledge, because sometimes I notice when people have passed, sometimes they do that as well. But it wouldn't hurt to talk to the Garys that know her and see if there is any correlation or if a Gary has any answers. I'm going to go back to her last seen chart. And one of the first things that made me wonder if she didn't make it back to the reservation is when I look at the moon, it's the chain of events. And her last contact before 7:45, she made contact here with the perpetrator's house, something to do with the perpetrator. And when I look at it, it's a 3-degree difference. And with the sign and stuff that it's in, either right about probably 3 weeks or 3 days prior to this date here, she had talked to somebody related to the perpetrator. That's what this looks like to me right here. When I first look at her rulership and the perpetrator's rulership, there doesn't seem to be a connection. But in Hellenistic astrology, there's these things called antishas and contra-antishas. And it shows a connection between Mercury and Jupiter, and it shows a connection between Mars and Jupiter. So I was wondering if Mars could be the second side of his personality, or possibly a second person. And the reason why I'm looking at Mars is because here's this 20 degrees. The last thing she made contact was here in Saturn in the perpetrator's house. The next thing she makes contact with is Mars at 21 degrees. Mars rules the end of the matter. The Mars is also connected to the perpetrator through the hidden connection. Another minor thing that made me suspect that maybe he might be from her reservation is when you look at Jupiter and Gemini, it's ruled by Mercury. So the way he sees her is almost like himself. So whether that is maybe he's also native, maybe he also had been in a group home, maybe he's gone through some of the same things as her, but he identifies with her somehow. There's a couple things in this chart that show that it might take longer than usual to solve this case. One of those is Jupiter retrograde, and another one is Saturn here in the 7th house. But the good thing is Jupiter's in his fall, which means there's a good chance that the perpetrator made mistakes. If we look at Mars as a second part of the perpetrator's personality, I know I told you guys before that he can likely shift personalities, like 2 personalities. We see that because of Pisces, and we see that because of Gemini. Part of his second personality could be related to Mars, and if that's the case, we might want to look at some additional features such as pop marks on his face, maybe like a round moon-shaped face, still with the dark hair, but possibly maybe with a red tint, still on the shorter side, maybe red cheeks, could have a rash personality, maybe not easy to be around. He may flip when he's depressed, uncomfortable, or have an agitated mind. When we look at the chain of events regarding the moon is at 20 degrees. That could tell us approximately when we see some type of resolution, some type of break in the case. And that would be 20 days after. 20 weeks after. She was found 19 days after this. So that proves to be true. If we go forward 20 weeks, that's putting us in the middle of June. So I'm hoping maybe we could possibly see some more information come out in the middle of June. Here is the mapping of Emily's chart. This is what it looks like when you put it down on scribble maps and you draw lines from the planets. This is what made me really wonder if the perpetrator comes from the San Carlos Reservation, or more particular, the Fort Apache Reservation. So if you look at this Jupiter line, this is the perpetrator line. This entire line right here goes right through the Apache Reservation. Right here is where Emily was found. I drew some extra lines out. Any circle that you see on here is a point of interest. For example, if he did discard her arms, I would look up here or down here in these two circles in that area. Because if he did discard her arms, I'm thinking that he did it at one of these 2 points, and by the time he got right here, because I think he planned on spreading out her remains. I don't understand why he would go through the lengths that he did to place most of her in the one place in separate bags. It doesn't make sense. It almost seems like he got frustrated or spooked or something. But there are some things on the other charts that I'll go through that makes me wonder if perhaps he still has her arms. Man, this is hard to talk about. Now I know why Kirsty takes so many breaks. You get emotionally attached. So I told you about the Jupiter line. The other line that I made that goes right through here, through the San Carlos Reservation, is the midpoint between the Mars and DNA. And the reason why I did that is because she was found at a midpoint between Jupiter and DNA. And so when I do a midpoint between Mars and DNA, because if you remember, Mars and Jupiter almost both kind of describe the perpetrator. There's like a secret connection there. So whether it's the perpetrator or a second person. And if you look where it goes through San Carlos, this lake right here, just a little bit north, is Peridot. Peridot is ruled by Jupiter. The gem Peridot is ruled by Jupiter. You can also see another spot, the line goes through here to Bilis. So those are some points of interest that I would look out for. Sure, these lines could go further out. Maybe this line goes way to another state and points at a different perpetrator. But I thought it was significant. Both of these are significant. And then I'll show you some other significant stuff in the other charts that I looked at. The next charts I'm going to show you kind of lead me to believe that the perpetrator still has her arms. I know I want to find them too. This first chart here, we look at the moon. It's ruled by Saturn. Saturn is in Pisces in the 7th house. That shows me right there, possibly part of her is still in his possession. We go to this next chart. Now, these are all charts that I showed you earlier, the Geico ad and the different Gary charts. If you're wondering, you can just look right up here in the corner on which chart I'm on. In this chart right here, the moon is ruled by Saturn. Saturn is in Pisces, 7th house, showing me that he might still have possession of part of her or part of her things. And we look at this chart. This chart's a little bit different. This has the moon up here in Taurus, which is ruled by Venus. Let's see if it gives us anything different. Venus is right here on the cusp of the 7th house, still in Pisces. And we know that Pisces is the home, the house, the area we look for the perpetrator. So in all 3 of those charts where she reached out to me, it's giving me some indication that maybe perhaps her arms are still with him. If they are not, I'm wondering either of those 2 locations that I showed you on Highway 60, or could also possibly have been in water and then washed up. Because also when I looked at the other charts, it starts in Pisces, starts in a water sign. All of them, all the ones that I looked at, started in a water sign and ended in a fire sign. The perpetrator is most likely a male, most likely older than the victim, may have a youthful appearance, brown or dark hair, bright or piercing eyes, may visibly look mentally impaired. He may possibly be short or have an odd body or well-set body, smaller teeth, longer arms, stomach issues, feet issues, big feet, pigeon-toed, possible foot surgery, may walk different, maybe a shuffle. He's intelligent and witty, possible speech impediment, hunter or hunting experience, maybe even possibly friends with fish and game type people. 2 sides of his personality, and we'll go over that second side. History of depression, delusional thinking, not right in the mind, may belong to a church, clergyman, teacher, law enforcement, full of self. When I mention law enforcement, there's many types of law enforcement, and he could possibly, whether he belongs to them or just be friends with them, as far as his hunting experience, bringing up that maybe he might possibly be friends with people that are in law enforcement. He could be a religious zealot. This could be occult related. Could be an alcoholic or a drug addict, a photographer. He might have used delusion or lies to get what he wanted. He could have taken pictures. It could be heroin involved. Jupiter also rules heroin. A contractor. We could also look at a contractor because a contractor is ruled by Capricorn and by Saturn here in the 7th house. Someone who's a loner. We also want to consider the name Gary somewhere in there, whether it's a Gary Road, the name Gary, lizard, whether that's lizard, gecko, Gila monster, and so forth, might be related somehow. Now, the second side of his personality, he might be the type of person that's just normally, when he's in his normal mood, just not easy to be around. But then he also flips, really moody, temperamental, even to volatile. He could have uncontrollable anger. He might flip when he's depressed, uncomfortable, his mind's agitated, when there's chaos in his life. And if you look at Mars in Cancer, that's the home. And Mars is destruction of the home. Possible additional features he might have pock marks or scars on the face, round face, moon face, still the dark hair, but with the Cancer, possible red tint, still on the shorter side, possible red cheeks, and a rash personality. It is possible, too, that he could, Jupiter rules a lot of things, but on the list it is have foreign countries, and it does have interstate commerce. bureaucracies, black sheeps of the family, large animals. There's so many things that it can fall under, but hopefully this gives you a good idea of what the perpetrator might look like, and hopefully this leads us closer to him. Thank you for watching. Please hit like and subscribe. See if we can't get this information out there. Maybe it can help lead to some justice for Emily. Thank you.
Hey yo, hey, hey, baby, I'm with it, oh, hey yo, hey, hey, baby, I'm with it, oh, hey yo, hey, yo, hey, hey, baby, I'm with it, oh, hey yo, hey.